Hello everybody, Dark Skeleton here, and today we're taking a look at two more Whispers of the Old God cards, including the fourth and final Old God, Yogg-Saron, the favorite boss from the Old War raid that I never actually got to fight. So Yogg-Saron, Hope's End, another 10 mana legendary, just like the other three Old Gods, 7/5, hilariously bad stats. Battlecry, cast a random spell for each spell you've cast this game, targets chosen randomly, which is utterly ridiculous. At first, when I saw this card, I didn't really take into account the targets chosen randomly effect, and I was like, whoa, that is just so absurdly powerful for Freeze Mage. And, you know, it still might be really good for Freeze Mage. Kind of hard to evaluate, honestly, because Freeze Mage casts a lot of spells. You cast, let's say, 10, 15 spells, very realistic to do over the course of a game as a Freeze Mage. And then Yogg-Saron comes onto the field and casts 10 or 15 spells instantly. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if playing Yogg-Saron ends in a draw half the time. What does happen? Does the first player to die from a spell lose, or do all 15 spells resolve, and then whoever's still standing um, is the winner? Or if both players die, then like no one wins. I would think that it resolves after each spell, kind of like if you, the player, was casting a spell. One spell resolves. If a player dies, then the game's over. That would make a lot more sense to me, because then in the case that you do play Yogg-Saron, and there is going to be a bazillion points of damage that hits the field, if you are at 30 HP and your opponent's at 5 HP, then more than likely your opponent's going to be the one to lose, not you, despite all the random damage that's going around. So I think in that sense, Yogg-Saron would be a lot more useful, because you don't really want 15 spells to go off, which ends up killing both of you, right? Um, Now, the things that can happen with this spell is ridiculous. You could get secrets. You could get a duplicate on the field, and then Yogg-Saron gets played again. How stupid would that be? Might be the most fun of the old gods, but it's super hard to tell if it's any good or not. Honestly, what can you take advantage of with random spells? Because it's not the hero casting the spell, so Flame Waker doesn't trigger. I would imagine Violet Teacher doesn't trigger, so on and so forth. Um, Maybe as a board clear, kind of like a really risky board clear. If you play 15 spells, sooner or later you're gonna get a Flame Strike, right? Right? Uh, Hard to know. Hard to know. I don't know if this can fit into any deck, but if there was a deck that I would play it in, it would probably be Freeze Mage, because it's like a last ditch effort to win the game after you've run out of burn. But since you played so many spells, Yogg-Saron more than likely will have enough burn to finish the game, and that really changes the dynamic between Freeze Mages and other classes, if this is a thing. Because, like for instance, I'm currently playing Reno Dragon Paladin, which has quite a bit of heal. How you win against Freeze Mage is you out heal them, and you make sure not to Reno before they Alex Straza, of course. Um, but if Yogg-Saron was in that Freeze Mage deck, there would be no choice but to eventually have to finish the Freeze Mage out. There wouldn't be making him run out of burn. It would be kill him before Yogg-Saron comes down, and of course heal yourself to stay alive as well. Would make matchups like that more difficult, because there's less outs. Running them out of resources wouldn't be an option. And, I mean, that could be a thing. You could see this in Fatigue Warrior too for similar reasons. This might actually be good in Fatigue Warrior, because Fatigue Warriors tend to have like 70 HP by the end of it. Yogg-Saron's not going to do 70 damage, but it might do a lot. So, you're playing Fatigue Warrior, you've burned through like 20 spells, because 2/3 of your deck is spells and not minions. Then you play Yogg-Saron, and you don't really need to necessarily go into Fatigue, because Yogg-Saron's just going to clean up everything. Crazy card. Probably much better in those really slow control decks that focus on spells. Priest might be a thing too. But honestly, hard to evaluate. Would definitely have to see it in practice a few times to really know if it's any good or not. But super cool card, definitely. Maybe my favorite old god so far. Okay, second card for today. Much less awesome, but still interesting. Spreading Madness, 3 mana Warlock, kind of AoE. Deal 9 damage randomly split among all characters. So it's like an Avenging Wrath that will also hit your own stuff. Costs half as much mana and deals 1 extra point of damage. when I first look at this card, I think it's actually fairly good. If the opponent has one creature on the field and you have no creatures on the field, then this would effectively become a 3-mana Hellfire that has some random components to it, not completely reliable. Uh, on average, 3 of those damage are going to hit you, your opponent's face, and the minion on the field. So that's effectively Hellfire, which 3-mana Hellfire is pretty good. Um, Having the random component into it, I think, is fine. I think randomly dealing the damage is worth not having to pay an extra mana. Now, this becomes better when your opponent's basically playing a Zoo-style deck, has a lot of 1 health creatures on the field, um, and then basically the Spreading Madness can ping each of those off. And at that point in time, I think it becomes pretty good. You don't really want to play it when you have a lot of your own creatures on the field, but seeing this in a deck like Handlock or Reno Lock, very plausible, maybe even likely. I think it's actually a pretty good AoE spell. And it really does answer those aggro decks, which just throw like 3 minions on the field really quick, because this is likely to kill anywhere between 1 and 3. Let's just say 2 of them. I think saying kill 2 minions when they're like leper gnomes or mana worms, not too unlikely. So 3 mana AoE, that's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. Compared to Demon Wrath is definitely more consistent. Maybe this is worse than Demon Wrath by a bit, but I still think it's playable. Unless you want to kill your own creatures too, that's another possibility. I mean, I think I would play Demon Wrath over Spreading Madness. Like a 2 mana consecration that, as long as you're playing demons. Yeah, something like that. Another thing to note is you can also use this for lethal damage. It's effectively like a Hellfire. So you could maybe see it in something like a Malygos deck as well. Anyway, it's not a bad AoE. It's not super good. Hellfire might be better because of the consistency. Definitely, actually, now that I really think about it. But especially in Reno decks, I could see it being played, and it might make its way into Handlock somehow as like an early game answer to the board. But then again, if you were going to do that, why not just use Demon Wrath? Yeah, fair point. So it's a pretty good card, a pretty decent card that may see some play. I do expect it to be seen every now and then in Reno Lock at the very least, and in Arena, I think it's good. I would pretty much draft it over a lot of cards in Arena. Okay, so that's it for today, guys. Yogg-Saron, pretty sweet. Spreading Madness, interesting AoE. I think at the start I was kind of giving it a little bit too much credit, though. I think I would rather have Demon Wrath in my deck. In any case, I've been Dark Skeleton. Thanks for watching today, and tune in tomorrow for what's likely to be some more Old God card reviews. So, till then, guys.